Ja, te nan kiti ni dollars di kut o kitnada huid net dollars di kitchen. A don da e ya kun kita achi hiki do boda nahi so kai kishi kun je to net dollars di kitchen na cha. A don da kun ma ya shana khani ya ishe ko do but dot a don da ke kana a re ko don kicha hada itsi dollars. A don da hada tsi hiki ya ping kichi te da hada tsi. Shma ya.
Yat A everyone, good evening. This is Ethel Branch, the nation's 13th Attorney General. I previously served as the nation's 11th Attorney General as well. Nitha Twitney Nishlin, Nakai Bashis Chin, Sitnajini Dashuche, Ado Nakai Dashanella, Quintana K Hashche, and East Can Diablo Det Nasha. It's wonderful to be here with all of you this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of the public interest in what's happening with the nation's Arizona water rights settlement negotiation. So this is a comprehensive negotiation to address all of the nation's water claims in the state of Arizona. That includes Upper Basin water, Lower Basin water, the LCR Basin, as well as Gila River Basin water. So it's been an incredible experience the past year being a part of the negotiation team. Early on, President challenged us to get a settlement, and the Speaker and Council was right there with their support. And we formed a negotiation team, and we've been working very hard on this task. And here we are today. We have proposed settlement terms. A summary was shared of those terms last week. And we now stand on the verge of a comprehensive settlement for the nation's water rights in Arizona. This is an incredible opportunity for our people to have real access to water in their homes. We are in a unique moment where we're at the end of a Congress, and there's an opportunity to pass legislation. We have great folks in Congress supporting our efforts. We have a strong administration that's very supportive of settlements. So this is a unique moment. It's a unique opportunity. While the conditions along the Colorado River are challenging right now in the mega drought that we're in, and that makes settlement of our rights even more important at this time, both to ensure that we're at the table as a sovereign, representing our own interests as decisions are being made on how to handle shortages on the river, and then also just to ensure that there are actually molecules available to be settled. We're seeing those disappearing at an unprecedented rate given the drought conditions. So we want to make sure that we firm up and we secure those rights as quickly as possible to put the nation in the best position possible to ensure a future for our people that is rich in water access and economic opportunity, because not only do the lives of our livestock and the health of our land rely upon access to water, but also in order to have a vibrant and strong economy, we must have access to water. And of course, to bring our people home, to build a strong, vibrant homeland that our ancestors dreamt of, and that we ourselves had strong intentions of returning to and contributing to, requires this access to water in our community. So it's a really incredible moment, a really incredible opportunity at this time. And I just am very thankful to be part of the negotiation team. The negotiation team has included almost all of the Arizona delegates, as well as the Water Rights Commission members, myself, other attorneys in the Department of Justice, our Water Rights Unit to be specific, as well as hydrologists in the Navajo Water Management Branch, in the Division of Natural Resources. And most of the team actually is Navajo, comes from our community, went off to school to come back and help our people. So it's really incredible to work with these individuals who are from our community and are deeply vested in our future as a nation. So it's just an honor to work with these folks. We also have former Attorney General Louis Dennett Sosi on our team as well. And in fact, we have quite a few outside attorneys assisting in this process to ensure that our team has all of the expertise that we need in order to be in the best position possible in our settlement negotiations. And we also have a number of outside hydrological experts on our team as well. So we have been well positioned throughout the course of the negotiations. And I believe that the terms that we've negotiated for position the nation well for the future that we've all dreamt of. And so it's really incredible to be here in this moment and to be here with this team to share details of what that settlement might entail. So at this time, I'm going to hand things over. The president wanted to share some words.
Shikedo Shodane Hodo Hataso Kizgi Hodoya Tenevananta Dr. Boo Nigrin Dia Hoje Ho Zijo Hoje Nahui Ahigi Bethaz Anigi Navajo Department of Justice Gatit Ahi So Shanad Neshigi Madam Ethel Branch Hotoya Didi the Kui Goshinga dit Ahi Dan Lenigido Peshmas Ando Shishet has Anigi Yego Banda dit in Tahalet Ola Hajo Hatest on Bigatolit Hatnegi Jo Tobana hat inigi a Colorado River, Little Colorado River, do Coconino, do Navajo aquifers, dishi le de quigo shin alzadas sogo hane la de nebekeya hos to how Georgia bidet ito leto de ne lenigi chios idole noye betho aigi ado hodina goshin hodo Beshwa has an large yayel tigi speaker curly shin kitchen zito lit ado hoje Radit Ahit so Madam Ethel Branch Hodo Nigel Chodo Aston Lead Commission Hadan Lenigi Bikitahodi ni dot Cheneschi Nahalo Nhadel Nishigi di so Horoshi Yada Dosto Navajo Department of Justice Water Rights Attorney Radit Ahit and Lenigi Dia si Yego Ronald Sos Hadelia Northeastern Arizona Indian Water Rights Settlement Agreement Noye Hadelia sta dat Ashlatina Hedoba Diba Nahat si Hadot Alto Hate Ola the Nebeke Bakau Tro Bedet Etolil Noye Hil de Don Jono Trobedadet Egi Kate and it Lord Khan de Lodo Biga Tasit Leo Ebony Nache at 8 Le no Kaja Hoje Hol Jido Ado that is not English Nache Dia Hodo, the Nea Huichi, the Nishigishin Hodo, in Ketchane, Edo Lee. John Le start that Nes Nana, Hedoba Ayeta, a hot oath settlement, but they stand a U.S. Senator John Kyle, a hot end, you peso, but that given in Nature. Toby got that there's need lake in Nahal credit, Ebininato, Nas Hite Yada. Adona Kinana Hega 2012 sa hot osaba ya yanada skip a hot end as hanat ato khanahadat ahnd dobiga hado ni ebina so kanda kadache neznana khidoba ahazli kad benada hazlit ado nalsos hajo khadest the nebe Washington Beshwa has anya anat jagi betaten dol sos hodo nido Ekat approved the Northeastern Arizona Indian Water Rights Settlement. Ado bekedo shi in le ado benyenda edos kedoshi hata so kizishi le peshma sa an do habatate nil sosta ndaide desh kisla no sonji Navajo Nation Council bichin da do do bandad nishido da le beshin sin case be da do khashal di shitil ado a heha soshin la hot oshin khayud ne hoda ne so di ashon jono ben da do nishbinina hodon nishigi Trobete da nitle trodebe ina no beni nache John Lake at all khata sa to nito zeil endo naniste yosge donle as chinya jita ostkhagi eta dol nit non le yedeskade hot en trodebe na anish Toteno in le nasty descado on the bigata shido lit hore keda honito kanda stahalada hot oben in the jono khadest na kedenezeti na khede kedan legido the net and lenigi ad jono trobe da honlido lit when zon beninache bedat nil kal hoje bede nil nish the quishin des do the quishin is a thing can ask the hot or in khas that ahigi yin dashnish ani be khasti gadit ahit sota aro she khojeto shilhaz anigi nal so shay nel chief legal counsel bitta becker da hodat anigi don le quishin consultants da aro kida attorney general then Lewis the net so hodat anigi da ye go yin dashnish Aro di Hodina Gonjonon Kiltadon Higi si hate o la Hoto Hojitna Holji Donald Sos Hadel Yag hate o the ne is Bacado was Nenegi Eshi Yanda dot in slow Bekedo Shinda Le the Mona Astleo Shin Linal Sos behes Ani Hadol Nilton Lim Besh has unbehiado Skesh Aro bekedo sin sla I dos kas naide des kilto ja shliat eto dos shliat eta comments nenegi eshin hoda dosli aro she bekedo besras ani landata aslito eshe shishana dos kesaro bela na shli she tegonado shli kinalke ye de hawan ye hawan behes ani de yozhagi eshin ye landa asli bekedo she shlatin khahot zobka nat ani lenegi eshin ye la asli ad intan jono nika kha o wedole khwin zoshi jo khoro loban za kesen le ye hawando de hawandan lenegi Senator Kelly do Senator Cinema Congressman Crane that enigi si besta ille خودن خیل خیجب بکیه دلیل کتو نخیه دلیل کتو لیستانو یدن اتلو ابنی نخورو دنه بکیه بکان کتلت انگی تکیش هن ناسکو دینیت آهات اشی به خودی ناگوشین یگو بین کتنا هدون آهات این اخیهن کدینی دلیل آرو حد اسو کزگی دو کشین کت دل کت بین کتنا هنو خورو دنه بنن دکتر بو نایگرین خورو هنن هیچ ایشلا دو شی خورو باید نیتیگی بکیسز جو قدیه Bigan sobansis kesen lehona hot not ani sanas credo not ani do the nei this senigida sata hot enigida ya yada di baye deltigi do biga ta do le ebinina kanda le kenahal krebe not ani jono dan kedes senda biga peslan linda ano Washington benant an denigi besla zenigi bendashil neshoshi hona hot shi Ada anehi adel yada needs not anda need into the aronast and said the kesen cashin tobe the hundred the needs so nadi kedel ebe a hen gedini do hogone.
Thank you so much for those words, Mr. President. And at this time, I want to hand things over to Honorable Speaker, who has some wonderful words to share with us. And I just want to thank both President and Speaker for their strong leadership in advancing this effort to bring us to this point and to be at this historic moment. Go ahead, Madam Speaker.
Yeah, that is not Shay Crystal and Curly Nishka. Do Senjikin and Nishla. Twot head Lini Bushes Chin, Kia Ani, that should che dogs of Kia Ani Dashanella, but a mother a son in Nishla. Don't lay a thought hard holy head there, you see at that Nasha. Sanalan do Talagrina was at there. Do dig at Ishla Nadine Ishla Fish, but doesn't any be what Jihiki by Yashke, 25th Navajo Nation Council Speaker. Do a slot go Tatna Zulibik Etinch E Talana do Talagaides bestowed Asian Deshkish Jetes Nazlina do Dak Ehalane do Kodo a Hehe and Dreshnil. That is not Agito Kwaiki and here Rapid Ahi Netragi Attorney General de Kliniki Ethel Branch Kodo and Junako Shahos Agi by Hinson do de you that is not agit is a yego kodo by Hinson is it the tro in not that the nitle a cordon Nikil hot a heki if the ben natchet waters rights that the no the cushy no kodo she says do the kit says a kodi need the Attorney General Nikilna Hosne the water higi water rights a le nabik iyat hitgo al khatet din le was doje ke betahod zoje do anche do hopi kis ani ajike da het inigi do southern payu that hegi anil tro a large dahne bin do الخط ديت أهدي هي شي تخد شي دول إنتو هنلا تخو با يسدي با يدل كي دي ناخي أكو نكين نانشتن سخازغو كو نكين نانشتليا أدل تخو دي دا إنيش جوكو شي كدو agreement هو ليهيكي نكين داهن دول كيش كو بيش بدس أنا داني لينيكي kwa eki hitwa bayashti iki li bitwa groundwater do al khagi surface water le niniki at epi do le ado kwa eki hehe nikideshni ko an higatit ahi the net and liniki do besh padas anet and liniki di and dashnish 1 year anache di alla anache go hashi a kuichi in dal nesto di tropa dani da di no kun hinon neshtelia ako di elsko hatelia din da inishko besh padas ana yanda tot to sa bevana hodit ahi ni hitahen dolkesh ad lo bella da di leto bella isli o do kodon he Navajo Nation president Nigrin lo biji ika ito lito legit with the dodge US Congress je ad lo en kina nishin ad lo nadan das do lehti kodo bikitten si zones so ye lege kin na holge President Biden ad bella do le edanitsen do di lo beso o you beso betel do le do lo de unique do le den he Washington Congress that do President Biden kodod o hehet hidishni de ze la o you na atikid holodo sto ni higatit ahi le Nikinago Tataka. I know many of our Navajo Nation Department of Justice and attorneys are visiting as many Arizona chapters as they can to provide public education. Kwaigi lo naltosto the she ahlahleto ade atcha shanalto leto idis to ade shana atikit holonon o hleniki nakahas alto kwaigi ashjane that deep need ko ziego nke water rights bani chento halanet to inait that deep need John Lejo Keda Wheat Inje Black Mountain, Fish Point, Low Mountain, Blue Gap, Touchy, Ajo Keda Wheat Inigi Central Agency to Hayunde Atin Hitoda Dendo Atin de Nihiden Atwan Dahige Ebenache Kon Halane Kon Sahoton Nil Edanisen Oko Ebenache Kon Bikitten Seats. Do nakado go the public education da lego adin dos kilto halana disha di asha da do ninigid ein khahas alto what hehen hidini do le adet that is not gido kodo so nikebesh patasa ane council delegate Sean Dean Parish so it's isigo ashin belagane kachikon kilto nikil hodolne this is a speaker of the 25th Navajo Nation Council.
Shanad Ado Yat Ed Amosto Yat Shik Ado Yat Amato Amasanento Ache Ado another Yat Shakia Ani Adona and Shlingo Go Bashishchin Squidchi Edashiche Kabaha Edashihara Akut Al Selenishli Shandin Perishing Share Ado Squidinesha de Nasha Squidinesha do Chibito do the Nahota Banashado Ado Shadish Badasa Animation. Good evening.
one Aina Shandin Parish, and it is an honor to serve the communities of Kayenta, Danahoto, and Chochimbito on the 25th Navajo Nation Council. I also serve on the Budget and Finance Committee as the chairwoman. And thank you, Speaker, thank you, Attorney General, and thank you, President, for your words this evening as we are continuing to share with our Navajo people the Arizona movement and the settlement for the Navajo Nation in the state of Arizona. I represent communities in Western Agency on the Navajo Nation, and this is crucial to the development of our economy, but it's even more important to getting running water to our people. There are major developments in Western Agency that need the settlement, that need the money in order to make sure we have clean drinking water. In 2019 and in 2020, I served as Miss Navajo Nation. And the last time I was at KTNN was giving some protocols to in sharing with the Department of Health on how to wash your hands. And what we were running into is that we don't even have running water, the basic necessities in many of our homes. And so today, as a member of the 25th Navajo Nation Council, I continue to advocate for the need for running water across the Navajo Nation. My grandparents are from Navajo Mountain, and that's one of the most rural communities on the nation that need these pieces of infrastructure. And tonight I'm here just to continue to share the needs across the nation in Western Agency as well, but and also to encourage our people to learn more about the settlement, because through the settlement, many of our projects can be accomplished. On the Budget and Finance Committee, we also look at all of the projects, the capital outlay projects that require CVSIN dollars or require general fund dollars, but these new settlement dollars will continue to make sure that we build the infrastructure that we need to build homes, to encourage our young people to come home, and also to make sure that we have the basic necessities like running water to our homes. So this evening, I'm grateful for the short amount of time that I'm here to speak with the Speaker of the Navajo Nation Council, the Attorney General, and also the President on this topic tonight. So I just wanted to share a few words and continue to advocate and listen to our people. On Monday, March 4th, I was out in the community of Kayenta where the Department of Justice gave a presentation to the community, and I just really commend the Department of Justice on continuing that public education aspect. I know it's important for people to first get the information in order to make comments on the upcoming discussions that are being made. So we look forward to hearing your comments and also making sure that we get them documented in order to have a very thorough discussion amongst the 25th Navajo Nation Council. Thank you all for your time this evening. I'm going to turn the time back over to the Attorney General. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madam Chair. It's great to be here with everyone this evening. We actually have most of us here in the studio at this time, so this is really great. It's nice to have the option of Zoom and virtual engagement, but certainly nothing replaces the face-to-face contact, and that's what's really wonderful about these public education sessions, is that we have our team out there in the field engaging with our Navajo people face-to-face, and tremendous thanks to the team that's out there in the field. We have our Vice Chair of the Navajo Nation Water Rights Commission, Earl Tooley, who's out in the field giving these presentations in Navajo, former Attorney General Louis Dennett Sosi, providing the legal perspective in Navajo. And then, of course, we have our dynamic duo from the Navajo Nation Water Rights Unit. We have Dwight Witherspoon, as well as MacArthur Stant, who are out there in the community as well. And sometimes we're honored to have Crystal Tooley joining us, Cordova Tooley, or Tooley Cordova, sorry, from our Navajo Department of Water Resources. We have Robert Kirk out there often as well, doing just an incredible job of delivering this information in English as well as the Navajo language. and Director Jason John as well. So we have quite a wonderful group of individuals out there covering these 13 public education sessions. And at this time, we're going to have that presentation delivered to you here on the air. So I'm going to hand things over to our presenters to get us started.
Thank you, Madam Attorney General. It's wonderful to be here. I am MacArthur Stant, Yate. My clan is Senjikin, and I'm born for the Hawaiian people. And it's just wonderful to be able to be a part of this. I grew up in Greasewood Springs, and I also attended high school in Ganado for a year, and then was a graduate of Holbrook High School. So I feel as if it's great to be back here and return to the nation. So tonight, a large part of what we're doing is we want to help you understand the settlement. And we're going to be basing a lot of what we talk about on what we call the settlement summary, which is located for anyone to access on the Navajo Nation Water Rights Commission website. And we'll be giving you that website throughout the night. And we greatly encourage you to look on the website and to go through the summary and to continue to be involved. One thing that I've noticed is as we've gone around throughout the nation in Arizona is how much knowledge our members have about water, and it's great to be able to share this with the nation at this time. But before we actually go into the settlement summary and the discussions of that, one thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some background information. And in particular, well, I need to also mention that it's been quite an honor to understand that in terms of the Department of Justice and the Water Rights Unit and the whole team as we're doing this settlement is to understand the importance of water for the Navajo and for the culture that we have. It's wonderful to realize that water is life. It's an honor to learn of the male and female nature of water that the Navajo have, which truly makes it a powerful, life-giving force that the sacred mountains that we believe in supply us with this water, that the ceremonies that we use, such as washing, is ingrained in the water that we have. And I mention these things just so that it's important that as we understand as the Department of Justice and as the Navajo leadership, that we have this as our foundation as we move forward with settlement, that we know that this is the beginning of how we should do this and how we should focus our efforts into settlement. Now, for the first hour or the next hour, we'll be giving information in English. And then in the hour after that, the same information will be given in Navajo because we know the importance and the value of that. So we're grateful that you're here. And as we think about this, in the state of Arizona, there are a large number of Navajo communities and chapters. And to think about, as the Attorney General has mentioned, this is a comprehensive water settlement, which means that the Colorado River has been divided in two basins. And Lee's Ferry, which is fairly close to Page, is that boundary. And if we think of it as east of Lee's Ferry and moving northward, that is the upper basin. And then if we think of heading west and south of Lee's Ferry, which is close to Page, is the lower basin. The Attorney General also mentioned that we need to consider the Little Colorado River Basin, which is a watershed and helps to feed into the lower Colorado Basin as well. So I hope that you're able to see these parts of the boundaries that exist within this water basins that we're referring to. And it is a amazing, wonderful connection that the nation has with the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River Basin. Now, hopefully that gives you some idea of the area that we're referring to. In 1922, the federal government had what we call the Colorado River Compact. And we're going to talk about this for a few minutes because it helps to set up how the nation is pursuing its Arizona water rights. As I mentioned before, there is recognized the upper basin and the lower basin. If you want to think about it, again, using the concept of a map, in the upper basin, starting from the north, we have the state of Wyoming. And then as we move our way south, on the west side, we have the state of Utah. On the east side, we have Colorado. Moving south, on the west side, again, we have Arizona. And then on the east side is New Mexico. Those 5 states are considered to be the upper basin. Then there are 3 states that are in the lower basin: Arizona, and then as we head west, there's Nevada and California. What the Colorado River Compact did is the federal government gave the states, the 5 states in the upper basin, 7.5 million acre feet per year to be used in those states. The federal government, also gave that same amount of 7.5 million acre feet per year to the 3 states in the lower basin: Arizona, Nevada, and California. Now, if we continue to imagine the Colorado River, it becomes the boundary between California and Arizona, and it continues to run all the way down into Mexico. Mexico is also a part of this compact, and Mexico was given 1.5 million acre feet per year. These are very important ideas that we need to remember because it's the way in which the nation can consider getting water rights and the amounts of water in connection with that compact. I've already mentioned acre feet per year, and a lot of times people will compare it to a football field. At the same time, it is very similar to the size of a homestead lease here on the nation. So using either one of those ideas, which one is most comfortable for you, a football field, or think of again a home site lease area. And if there's 1 foot of water covering that entire area, that would be considered an acre foot. Now, I just give this information because you've already heard that the compact, the Colorado River Compact, assigned the upper basin and the lower basin 7.5 million acre feet per year. An interesting thing to consider is that the upper basin, which has 5 states, 4 of the 5 are given a percentage of that 7.5 million. The state of New Mexico is given 11.25% of that 7.5 million acre feet. Wyoming gets 14%. Colorado, 51.75%. The state of Utah, 23%. In the upper basin, Arizona is unique because instead of being given a percentage, Arizona has been given 50,000 acre feet per year, an exact number. Now, what is interesting about Arizona is that the entire portion of Arizona that is in the upper basin of the Colorado River is the Navajo Nation. That's an important thing to remember in terms of how we can pursue our Arizona water rights, that it is a unique part of the upper basin allocation of water. Just to give you the complete idea, of that 7.5 million acre feet that was given to the lower basin states, Arizona receives 2.8 million acre feet per year. Nevada, 300,000 acre feet per year. California receives 4.6 million acre feet per year. Now, hopefully with these ideas, we can give you just a little more information about the importance of the Colorado River Compact. Think of it as a process. In this process, we had the federal government, and the federal government decided that the water from the Colorado River would be apportioned among the 7 states of the Colorado River. So the states have these amounts of water that was given to them by the federal government. Now that the states have this water, the next part we need to remember is that the water rights for federal lands, including Indian reservations, must come out of the allocation for each state under the compact. So that means as the upper basin, Arizona has 50,000, and the Navajo Nation's allotment can come out of that was given to Arizona for the upper basin. Then, since the Navajo Nation is in Arizona in the lower basin of the Colorado, there is that opportunity to make a claim for that part that was given to Arizona as well. The last thing that I want you to think about in terms of the Colorado River Compact is that, to quote, "The compact shall not be construed to affect the obligation of the United States to Indian tribes," which means there is a trust there, that the United States is our trustee, and that the United States, are still obligated to be our trustee when it comes to water. So just a reminder that in the Navajo Nation water rights claims in the state of Arizona for the Colorado River, and this is again what makes it comprehensive, which the Attorney General mentioned at the beginning. Comprehensive would be the Navajo Nation having a claim in the upper basin, Colorado River, in the lower basin, Colorado River, and the Little Colorado River Basin, which is a watershed of the lower Colorado River Basin. So it does take some time to understand how all of that works. And I hope that we're getting closer and closer to that understanding, and I appreciate it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move over, now that we've established that the Navajo Nation has claims to specific waters in Arizona, how can we legally pursue those water claims. There are two ways that can be done. It can be done through what is called the general stream adjudication, and that is litigation, which means a traditional Western court environment where you have witnesses, testimony, and instead of a judge, this process of adjudication in Arizona, we have what we call a special master, which is in the role of a judge. And so that is one way we can do it. The other way, and this is what we'll be going through a lot tonight, is settlement. I think it's very important to understand that these are two completely different methods for the nation to pursue its Arizona water rights. Please understand that these two things, adjudication and settlement, do not mix. They are very separate. And what I'd like to say is that the end result is there will be a decree if we, the nation, use one of these two methods. There will be a state decree of water rights to the nation. Now, before I move on, in terms of adjudication, something that I hope we can all understand is that it is not comprehensive. The adjudication is only for water rights in the Little Colorado River Basin. In contrast, settlement is comprehensive, which means the Upper Basin Colorado River, Lower Basin Colorado River, and the Little Colorado River. Now, I'm going to do my best to try and make sure that we understand that the general stream adjudication is a way and is completely different, and there is no interaction to the other method, which is settlement. So I'm just going to use an example of, like, we have two cars, and these two cars can both reach the same destination, which would be a decree of water rights for the nation in Arizona. But the roads that these two cars take to get there are different. And these two cars do not operate in the same way. They're very distinct on how they do that. Now, I want to tell you just for another 5 minutes about how we can use the adjudication. The way it works is it's in a Western style court. Again, that has witnesses and testimony that the special master, who serves like a judge, listens to and then makes a recommendation. Through a federal law called the McCarran Amendment, when it comes to the parties who want to have a water decree, the McCarran Amendment says that the tribes are the first to go into this adjudication, this court. The Hopi tribe has already had their adjudication for the Little Colorado River. The Hopi tribe, for their adjudication, they needed to make claims. And the state of Arizona, in trying to have their special master decide the recommendation, a few things that the Arizona court wanted was a projection of a future population, because that would be something that would be considered. The people that you have, those are the people that need the water. So for Hopi's adjudication in their hearings, they gave a projection for the year 2110 that their population would be 52,016 people. Now, after all the hearings and all the witnesses, the special master, who is like a judge, decided that Flagstaff's expert, because not only was it the Hopi, but all the other parties had the opportunity, just like a Western court, to present witnesses and testimony. And the special master agreed with Flagstaff expert, which was a far different number for a future population than Hopi had given. Flagstaff's expert said that the Hopi population in 2110 would be 18,555 people, which is a huge difference than what the Hopi claim was of 52,016. There was another claim for water the Hopi had for 90,000 acre feet per year. The special master again gave a recommendation for a very, very different amount of 29,000. Again, when it comes to litigation that is used through the general stream adjudication, the special master gives a recommendation after hearing testimony and witnesses. The Navajo Nation is almost complete with its first part of its adjudication, phase 1, which means, like the Hopi, we had to give a future population. So in 2110, the nation's claim for population was 340,000. Now we must wait until our complete adjudication is finished, which will be years from now. But when that happens, again, using only litigation, the special master will give a recommendation. Like Hopi, Navajo has a claim. And for phase 1, the nation has had a claim of 85,000 acre feet. And again, we'll have to wait for the special master's recommendation after all of the Navajo hearings are complete, which is years from now. So I've told you that we're in what we call part 1 or phase 1. And next month, there'll be the closing arguments on April 16th and 17th, where the Navajo Nation, in a Western court style, will give the special master our argument as to why we believe our claim is correct for population and for water claim, as well as the other parties will also give their arguments as to why they think the nation's claims are incorrect. Now, I mentioned that there'll be a phase 2, and that trial will begin in the year 2027, years from now. So I have not given a lot of detail tonight about litigation, which is one method for us to get Arizona water rights, but we wanted to address it because it is happening at the same time as the settlement agreement is. And I really do appreciate the time and the opportunity to do this. But now I'm going to send it over to the other attorney in the water rights unit, Dwight Witherspoon, who will talk about the second way, settlement in terms of getting Arizona water rights. Dwight?
Yat a shido shikedo shudene yat Dwight Witherspoon yinished doli dene touching inishle base but ahni bastin but ahni dashache and Scottish dashanale to agit ahi na nish settled going do kitlana de nasha to ena. I am very grateful to be speaking to you this evening to talk about what are the quantities of water that the Navajo Nation would receive through an approved settlement, and why through settlement the water that the nation can receive is much more comprehensive than through the process that my colleague MacArthur Stant was conveying through our litigation of claim. Our claim on the Little Colorado River started in 1985, and we had our first phase for that claim 39 years later last summer. The second phase for the claim on the Little Colorado River wouldn't occur until 3 years from now in 2027. That claim does not include the upper basin. It does not include the lower basin. And so the elements of the settlement is much more comprehensive because it includes or settles all of our Arizona water rights in Arizona, in the upper basin, the lower basin, the Little Colorado River, includes groundwater, and it also includes water in the Gila Big Bow Kias Ranch region. The parties that are involved in the Northeastern Arizona Indian Water Rights Settlement Agreement include water users in the Little Colorado River region. Certainly the Navajo Nation is a water user, the Hopi tribe, the San Juan Southern Paiute tribe, but also the United States Department of Interior. They have BLM lands, Bureau of Land Management lands. They have U.S. forest lands. They may have national parks. And so they have lands and are a water user as well. The state of Arizona is a party. The Arizona Department of Water Resources and the Land Department, they have lands, certainly in the checkerboard, in many of the ranches, and so they are a water user. Salt River Project, the city of Flagstaff, and then many of the neighbors to our south that are made up of what's called the Little Colorado River Coalition. These are like cities of Holbrook, Winslow, Show Low, Snowflake, also ranches, irrigation districts, make up a lot of those water users to the south. And these are parties in this settlement agreement. The settlement agreement is so much more comprehensive than our claiming our rights in just litigation on the Little Colorado River. Many of you are maybe familiar with the 2010 proposed water settlement for Arizona and the 2012 water settlement proposal for the nation in Arizona. In the 2010 settlement, what was proposed was to settle the lower basin Colorado River water and the Little Colorado River. In the 2012 water settlement proposal, it only included the Little Colorado River. There was a reserved amount for a future settlement regarding the lower basin of the Colorado River. The upper basin was not included because in 1969, the Bureau of Reclamation approached the Navajo Nation Council and requested that the Navajo Nation not assert any claim to the upper basin of the Colorado River for 50 years. Well, that ended in 2019. So now we're able to assert our rights or claims to the upper basin of the Colorado River. So this particular settlement includes all of the waters for the Navajo Nation in Arizona. It includes the upper basin of the Colorado River. It includes the Little Colorado River main stem. It includes the lower basin Colorado River, It includes groundwater of the Coconino Aquifer and the Navajo Aquifer affluent, and the waters for Big Boquillas Ranch. And so that's why it's much more comprehensive. What are the amounts that we would receive in this settlement? For the upper Colorado River Basin, so those chapters that are included in the upper Colorado River Basin area, above Lee's Ferry, you have portions of Coppermine, Lichee, Inscription House, Kaibito, Kienta, Danahozo, parts of Mexican Water, Tisnasmont, Sweetwater, Cove, Rock Point, Round Rock, Rough Rock, Chimbote, Chinle, many farms, Saley wheat fields, Sawmill, Noslini, and Solana, and then parts of Ganado and Steamboat. Those, all the other chapters in Arizona would be considered a part of the lower basin. So the state of Arizona has a set allocation of 50,000 acre feet. And because the Navajo Nation has the predominant amount of land in that upper basin, you would assume that the nation would get the bulk of the water rights out of that 50,000 acre feet allocation to the state of Arizona. So the proposed quantity in settlement is the Navajo Nation would get 44,700 acre feet a year of the upper basin allocation. There's a small portion of the upper basin that is off the reservation near Page. Page receives about 3,000 acre feet of that upper basin water. In agreement with the Hopi tribe would get 2,300 acre feet of the upper basin. Navajo almost getting about 90% of that 50,000 acre feet allocation in the upper basin. That amount and that water, I want to convey why this water is so valuable. Because there's this set amount from the upper Colorado River, where Arizona is at the tail end of this upper basin, but because the upper states like Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico have divided up their portion by percentage, Arizona has a set amount. And so because it has a set amount, Arizona should be essentially guaranteed that it would receive that set amount. And that makes it very reliable. It makes it certainly much more firm and is protected as any of the water on the Colorado River. And so this makes our allocation of 44,700 acre feet from the upper basin of the Colorado River very valuable. The next portion that I'd like to discuss is the lower basin Colorado River. The amount or quantity that we would be receiving is 3,600 acre feet. This includes 100 acre feet of the Cibola lower basin water. Now, many of you may be familiar with the prior 2010 and 2012 settlements proposals. That included an amount of non-Indian ag water that was Central Arizona Project or CAP water. The Department of Interior and the state of Arizona supported zeroing out any CAP water. And they did so because they believe that CAP water is unreliable. In 2007, the state's agreed to a drought contingency plan. And in this drought contingency plan, when the water level at Lake Mead gets to a certain level, the state of Arizona and the state of Nevada have to cut back on their water use. California had negotiated with Arizona that California would have a senior water right, and this is because Arizona was trying to obtain funding for the Central Arizona Project cap water system. And to do that, for California to agree, they wanted a senior water right. So when Lake Mead gets to a certain level, it is Arizona and Nevada that have to cut back on water. And this has occurred. Several years ago, when the water at Lake Mead got to a certain level, Arizona had to cut back 512 acre feet of water. And this is based on priority. Now, certainly some of that Central Arizona project cap water is some of those waters that would be first to be cut. And so there is a rationale that's been provided that the cap water is not very reliable. So the water that the nation would be receiving in the lower basin is fourth priority main stem water, which is more reliable than cap water. The amount again is 3,600 acre feet, which includes 100 acre feet from the Cibola lower basin water. The nation is also attempting to obtain more water in the lower basin as well. On the Little Colorado River, the nation would receive all of the main stem water that reaches the Navajo Reservation. There's an historic flow of the estimated amount of 122,000 acre feet, which reach the Navajo Nation. This includes quantified amounts of priority dates for specific historic irrigation projects or irrigation that occurs along the Little Colorado River. So a number of the communities have farming that occurs, and those historic farms are recognized with an acre, the amount of acres that they use for farming, and the amount of water. And that amounts up to about 40,000 acre feet. And that's included in that 122,000 acre feet. The nation also receives all of the Colorado River tributary water that reaches the Navajo Reservation. There's some protection that the nation has negotiated for the Little Colorado River. Some of those protections to ensure that we receive all of the flood flows that would reach the Navajo Nation is that there would be no more upstream irrigation or no additional reservoirs upstream of the nation. That's to protect certainly the flood flows to reach the nation. The amount of water that the nation can obtain on the Navajo aquifer. Describing the Navajo aquifer, there's a confined portion and an unconfined portion. The unconfined portion is larger. It goes up to Page, up north to Denahotso, as far east to Greasewood, to the west to Tuba City, and then south kind of by Bird Springs. And so the Ann Aquifer covers almost all of Hopi land. The confined portion is where if you drill into the confined portion, the water is pressurized, and so it arises in your well drilled and provides for good quality water. The Navajo Nation wants to protect, as well as the Hopi, the Navajo aquifer. And so we've negotiated agreement between Navajo and Hopi that protects the N aquifer, and we agreed to Navajo limiting their pumping to 8,400 acre feet a year. The Navajo Nation may pump up to 2,000 acre feet for industrial purposes, which is included within that 8,400. The Hopi may pump up to 5,600 acre feet, and they can also use 2,000 for industrial purposes, which is also included in their 5,600 pumping limit. These two things certainly protect the N aquifer. The unconfined portion does not have a pumping limit, but certainly you're not able to pump near as much in the unconfined portions of the N aquifer. For the Coconino aquifer, the nation is able to pump all of the water that has no pumping limit that underlines the Navajo reservation. The Coconino aquifer is very large. It covers up into the middle of the state of Utah, a quarter of the state of Colorado, about a quarter of the state of New Mexico, and a quarter of the state of Arizona, and most of that covering the Navajo Nation. The Coconino aquifer has a large amount of water. However, some of the water is very salty. And in some portions, there are areas where there may be arsenic or there may be radionuclides. But there's a portion of the Coconino aquifer near south of Loop where the nation has already drilled 3 wells, and that water quality in that region is good. And so we've established protection zones and agreements with Hopi, with the Arizona State Land Department, with the city of Flagstaff, and with Bartee Bar Ranch for pumping limitations and providing protections to our investment, certainly of those 3 wells. And those wells will provide water, hopefully, to a future Loop Delcon area region project. The benefit that we can get in settlement is we have no pumping limitation. If we were obtaining our water rights through the other vehicle that my colleague alluded to, the special master would make a recommendation that would limit how much the nation could pump on the sea aquifer. In this settlement agreement, we don't have any limit. Now, some areas of the reservation, the sea aquifer may not have the quality of water that we need for potable water for the communities, but there is a benefit because we have no limit in a settlement agreement. The allotments. On the Navajo Nation, there are a number of allotments. Off the reservation, there are some allotments as well. The settlement agreement will settle all the Navajo Section 1 allotments that are on the reservation. And the allotments will be able to obtain water rights from within the waters that the Navajo Nation receives in settlement. For those allotments that are off the Navajo Nation, those will not be included in a settlement agreement. Again, we really feel like the benefits of a settlement agreement provide for a comprehensive water rights settlement that settles all of the waters in the state of Arizona for the nation, includes the upper basin of 44,700 acre feet, in the lower basin, 3,600 acre feet, in the Little Colorado River, all of the water that reaches the Navajo Nation. Those annual flows are about 122,000 acre feet. We can pump all of the water on the sea aquifer with no limitation. We can pump water but we agree to a limit to protect the N aquifer of 8,400 acre feet from the N aquifer. And then in the unconfined portion, we have no limit. And then certainly we receive water for the Big Boquillas Ranch. That's why a settlement is much more comprehensive. The upper basin, again, being very firm, and because it has a set amount, makes it very valuable. Next slide. So this last slide that I'm going to talk about, it conveys information about why settlement is better for the Navajo Nation than litigation. And there's litigation on one side and there's settlement on the other side. Under litigation, there's a bullet that's called based on minimal need. In Supreme Court cases, there has been reference in the opinion to this concept of based on minimal need. So when the United States sets aside or reserves land, they reserve it for a particular purpose. That purpose might be a military base. It might be for a national park. It might be for a U.S. Forest Service. But it also could be for a tribal Indian reservation. This concept of based on minimal need for the nation, we believe, is a standard that must be met based on past, present, and future needs of the Navajo Nation for a permanent homeland. However, this concept becomes challenging in litigation because the other parties challenge the nation, saying that our water rights should be just the basic amount to meet the needs of the nation. Where this really becomes challenging is in future population. The Navajo Nation, in looking at the 2010 census and the 2020 census, which occurred during COVID, actually shows a decrease in the amount of Navajos on the reservation. Certainly the Navajo Nation is growing, but many of those may be off the reservation. We know that there was an undercount, but in the Little Colorado River stream adjudication, this concept of based on minimal need makes it very challenging to show and demonstrate that our nation is going to grow and we need much more water for the future as our nation grows. We claim certainly that there was an undercount. We asserted certainly that the nation would grow at a 1.3% growth rate. However, the other parties certainly challenged that. And so we look at what happened in the Hopi case. The special master agreed with the city of Flagstaff that Hopi's population would only be 18,855. And so we're concerned that our future population might not be very represented based on the 2010 and 2020 census that actually showed a decrease in the population even though we're arguing that there was an undercount, even though we're arguing that many of the Navajo Nation people will come back whenever the nation has the resources like water and availability for homes. So it's a challenge in litigation based on this concept of minimal need. In litigation, when we receive title to the water, we only receive a paper decree. So you can think of like a vehicle. If you pay for the vehicle all at once, you get paper title to the vehicle. If you have to finance it, you don't get title to the vehicle until you pay off the bank. In water rights, the Navajo Nation is wanting to obtain title or ownership to water within the state of Arizona. The Navajo Nation uses water. However, we don't have any legal quantified decreed rights in the state of Arizona for the upper basin, the lower basin, or the Little Colorado River. And we want to obtain that title so that it becomes valuable, and then we can make use of it. Certainly, as an owner of a vehicle, you have the ability to potentially lease it or sell it, but not that we're going to sell our water rights, but we have the ability to store it and control it and manage it and make use of it. And so we do want the title to the water rights. In litigation, you get no infrastructure dollar. You only get, okay, this is for this water source, you get this amount. For this water source, you get this amount. For this water source, you get this amount. In litigation, it's very adversarial. We started our claim in 1985. 39 years later, again, we are having our first phase. Second phase on the Little Colorado River won't be until 2027. So it's very lengthy and it's very costly. And it's uncertain on what we would get. We would hope that the special master and the judges would give the nation certainly a good water right based on the number of resources, but it is very uncertain. In settlement, one of the benefits for a settlement is you have certainty. You've negotiated the agreement and you know exactly what you're going to get. And this evening I've conveyed the amounts for certainly what the nation would receive in the upper basin, the amount that we would receive in the lower basin, the amount that we would receive for the Little Colorado River, the benefit that we can get from pumping underground water from the C aquifer and from the N aquifer, certainly water to the Big Boquillas Ranch in the Gila region. And so that provides for certainty as we've negotiated those amounts. One of the benefits in settlement is you can receive funding so that you not only get the quantified paper title, but you can also get funding to make those projects wet water projects so that you're making use of the water and delivering water certainly to many of your communities. An example of this is the San Juan River settlement. In the San Juan River settlement, they provided an allocation for $800 million up to $1.3 billion authorization. If you've gone to Shiprock, you can see many of those pipelines being put in, even a portion of it coming towards Winter Rock. The communities along the Cutter Lateral are already receiving water and making use in many of those communities. Because of COVID and because of inflation, the cost of that project has almost doubled. And so the funding will run out here at the end of this year in 2024. So there's a proposal, a bill in Congress right now to add additional dollars to fully fund that Navajo Gallup water supply project. and that'll ask for another $800 million, which makes that project over $2 billion. Large regional projects, water projects like this are very expensive. And so some of the benefits of settlement is you can obtain amounts of funding for such large regional water development projects. One of the other bullets that is in settlement is something called authorization for water diversion. This, I think, is the most important or critical point or benefit to settlement. Because the Navajo Nation is in 4 different states, because the Navajo Nation is both in the upper basin and in the lower basin, the Navajo Nation needs to be able to take water from the upper basin to the lower basin. An example of this is like in the 2010 settlement, taking water from Lichee, from Lake Powell, and bringing that water all the way down to Tuba City and all the way down to Cameron. Well, the water up there at Lichee certainly is in the upper basin. As you get past Lee's Ferry, you would be taking that water certainly down to Tuba City and Cameron. That's in the lower basin. In the law of the river, one of the concerns is you have allocated water to the upper basin and allocated water to the lower basin. So to be able to take water from the upper basin to the lower basin is a concern unless you get congressional authorization to do that and accounting for such. In litigation, the judge in the state of Arizona doesn't have any authority to allow or authorize the Navajo Nation to take water from the upper basin to the lower basin, or to take water from one state and move it into another state. And so the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project in the Arizona Water Settlement allowed for some water of 6,411 to potentially be brought into the state of Arizona and to provide what we would consider Arizona water, but be taken out from the San Juan River and channeled along that Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project line and be brought into Winter Rock for Arizona water. You need authorization to be able to do that, to take water from one state and bring it into another state, to take water from one basin and to bring it into another basin. So the judge in litigation, they don't have any authority to authorize bringing water from upper basin to lower basin or from one state to another state. You can only get that in settlement and through a congressional authorization. And so that makes the settlement so much more important to be able to obtain that authorization, because the Navajo Nation absolutely needs to have that type of authorization to move our water between states and certainly between basins. I certainly appreciate the opportunity I've had to share this with you tonight. We're going to have someone now discuss this concept of getting money for projects. And so be transitioning the time for one of our representatives from the Navajo Nation's Water Resources Department to discuss the projects and the possible funds that would come to make our water rights wet water so that we can make use of it in our communities. Thank you. Yeah.
Yate and good evening. My name is Jason John. I am the director of the Navajo Department of Water Resources. Taban Shle Aro, Ashti Espashichin, Ki Ani Dashnella Aro Ashihita. I'm here to talk about the proposed water projects in this Arizona settlement. The Navajo Department of Water Resources works in coordination with the Navajo Area Indian Health Service and the Navajo Tribal Utility Authority on water projects. So we have various sets of data on and activities that we work on to provide water. There is a lot of data that is with Navajo Area Indian Health Service, and that includes the number of homes that don't have piped water. In 2020, the Navajo Area IHS determined that there was approximately 10,000 homes that did not have water on the Navajo Nation. And most of the communities that did not have piped water are in Arizona. And so we've been trying to work with IHS and NTUA to develop plans to deliver water to these communities. Keep in mind that Navajo Area IHS really only focuses on domestic water development, mainly providing water for in-home use. They do not plan for long-term economic development projects. So that's where the Navajo Nation comes in. Next map, please. On the next, there's another map here, and I'll describe that. The Navajo Nation has been proposing water plans in many of the Arizona communities for the last decade. And some of those projects, many of the people are familiar with, and those include the Western Navajo Pipeline and the Loop to Delcon project in the Southwest. These projects have been discussed for a long time, and they are also included in this settlement. There are also projects where we're proposing to bring in additional surface water from the Colorado River system by way of the San Juan River. And we are planning to bring water into the Window Rock and Ganado and Lupton region through the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project. And we're also looking at another project to bring San Juan River water through the Four Corners area all the way down toward Chinle and Mini Farms, as well as Saline wheat fields. And then another large regional surface water project to deliver water from the San Juan River in Utah down toward Kayenta and surrounding communities in that region. So those are the large water delivery projects to bring additional surface water from the Colorado River system and onto the Navajo Nation. Next slide. And many of these projects are described in the handout that has been presented to most of the communities at the public presentations. And it's also accessible on the Navajo Nation Water Rights Commission's website. If you download that document that has a settlement summary, it describes these projects. It describes the amount of water that we're planning for and the cost of these projects. As we had discussed earlier, the what we call the Western Navajo Pipeline will now, in this settlement agreement, will also deliver water to the Hopi tribe and the San Juan Southern Paiute. So that project will now involve the Hopi tribe and the San Juan Southern Paiute on the western side. And the other projects in the agreement are really about Navajo projects. There are additional funding in these projects for also agriculture projects and operation and maintenance funds, and those are all discussed in the handout that we're handing out at the public meetings. Next slide. So we discussed a little bit about the surface water projects that would bring water from the San Juan River through the Navajo Gallup Water Supply Project into the Four Corners area, and then also into the Window Rock area, onward to Ganado and Lupton. And then there's the Western Pipeline Project that would deliver water to Navajo, Hopi, and San Juan Southern Paiute. And then the San Juan River Project down to Kayenta. There's also groundwater projects as well. Some of these same communities have groundwater that can also be developed in these same areas where we're delivering proposed surface water. There are also parts of Navajo that have sufficient groundwater to develop, and we don't need the additional surface water to be brought into those areas. And several of those areas include the Loop to Delcon area, where they can access the Loop Coconino Aquifer in that part of the southwest part of Navajo. The other region is the Black Mesa, where they can tap into the confined portion of the In Aquifer, and some of the communities off of Black Mesa that can utilize the unconfined portion of the In Aquifer to provide additional water to communities like Shanto, and developing In Aquifer water near Shanto, and Inscription House, and taking it north into Navajo Mountain. And those are the water projects that we are proposing in the settlement agreement. Keep in mind that we are requesting these funds for projects from the United States Congress. They are not here at the negotiating table right now. So we are getting all of the settlement parties to support our request for funding in this agreement. But when this settlement goes forward and on to Congress, that is another set of negotiations that have to happen, not only within Congress, but they may come back and talk to the Navajo Nation and the settling parties again about what Congress can provide for funding. So even though we are proposing these projects, there is still a ways to go trying to get through Congress. Next slide. And I was talking about additional funds that support these projects, such as O&M, operation and maintenance funds. There's also funding to develop renewable energy projects that could also provide power for the pumping costs and water treatment costs for these projects. Next slide. We discussed the Navajo Operation Maintenance Replacement Fund. We discussed the Navajo Agricultural Conservation Fund. We are proposing $80 million of funding that could be used to rehabilitate and maintain existing livestock wells, develop new earthen dams for livestock uses, and also a fund to assist ongoing farming projects on Navajo. And then there's also a water acquisition fund that we are planning for as well, that would help the Navajo Nation acquire water rights for various projects in the future. Next slide. And that concludes the description of the water projects. Thank you.
Huid netin leko. Ilagana keche ake hestona ko e kodon gilche da has akodo e yana ba kon len e sa dige aje go ke ya chi di in shado shige. Kodo e yan gilche hodit aslako. Adon da ade kodesh no siniki e yakon diki besh behanne. Nast e na kisse b se b naspas ashla hastrasos set na nasham. Nast e na kisse b se b naspas ashla strasos aji ki da nad sos nad agi aji betahi dochki don lindo adon that ti the code nad kitiki kodi lahota benasa hut ego chita had kid ben nachigoki achigoki hut ego chaha aho kodi ki ya had ne akonden ki hawadana so tranigi on hijat ben hinasiki kodo height koda kodon kilchohoti atle ako kodo chinit liniki ya chotrobe ina et na ot ego ba ya atke akon le lati ya konshi ba the sorts shi le we han cheho a we leshi trata trabet de kis ni hitla hot ego na hasan ba kadon an kitelia sendo adon dat an leshi trata tran hit the skis adon dat ade na hotes ago ki ya kon de tron lini chinil Bahaje lehende trochelo. Gehwete de kratje la hwete lehende trolle. Ado on de tapin konje na hosto. Quigi to trochana in leko. Ja pine konje jejetzo. Ado nazels odot ladel katarel katigi aji ito jega. Lehot setle shiki ya. Dike haize zotle. Ado ya hanjit dato kohani tratsekis. Edo tagot yas holongo to ahonanat Tlojato binge beda leta haji ito honi de betratsekis leko. Ahodat ego trogicheta. Ado da kubiche nada hodesh di shingo kon digin tapan dalti. Tlashi ata sadi chash jeni odge. Da shitran hinelo da shit oshi benalni. Ahut ego ta, so egot ego trope na harado, ahut ego nihi salan leko. Eki nad kitiki ahut lena da dojil da nest aniki akwigi so da akekin da liesho ka eki tropetin da hikra. Adon dan kelina ragi sto konde sto et en leko. Akotla as yugo kondigi tohigi chita en leko. Tropa tropa kra, nitsaba kra. Akot ego sto hodlo. Adon da dishen leniki kodo ayedo ba yeltke leniki ti de tro. Diki jon le chishite ade shitla tonle. Adot is ya ken besenel. Adot sees don le tahi le don le ikiti linja. Na sanapeti neniki topi yegi nlen. Ako hut ego diki trogi na ran leko. Akut ego yan kilchitesh adon da konde naidish kit no senigi. Ade sadigi kondigi ntenol trashing hicheto link. Beshba hanne en lenigi nast na kise bi nazbas ashla hastran sosset. Ado koden ki mayajen ki jahat radit ahitso. Et celestate das at dahagi. To kodigi naidikit ahit da nat atsa digi kodon ki beshne nigo. Tobeje otlehor to apo honet sa dole. Ako digit akwigi hut ako diko eki bahan lenigi di den leitron lenigi di shiran nes beti lenigi shika oyoban siskes tsida khayshta al tsatoyilsa adon dan yinez trada tsindle hard shi toik in the yadon le naho kosho shashi do hada nido le tats nigo akut ego da tsling betnash loj ben nachiko Trobishran nesigi Trotonel da to hut ego to na bijin leko. Diki kweke da di leniki kweke banate. Ako naho kosho go to etro. Ajigo gilto yabije hodlo. Adon the shada ajon to nan. A quacky ya. The tratnas nelebaraniki distinct doba di. A quacky ya Trogi bedet necho quacky yaba wheelne. A con the con hit kahoja kati kriselin le. The mobi yajieta sehot soja. Gilchehonita. Ado the mo yeta. Eta ak land. The mobis kanieta todnesje. Ado tada de jean. Gida de torch the do chajunta. Ajigoki kodon hitisha adia. Flashi hanada so gizenle. Ako skago in lebina hat sky or jetro. The joy coded net and craigie agenda the cato quake sandatli. How long quake English the hadit asen neko. Quake yankil behos and lindorlet. A cohoti quake trobanate and lenigil to. Abohonet sanigit ego quadon gilchitit ash. Adon the naidol kid ashon the naidol kid or lit. Di hodina ko yasad betana hodit ahi. Kodo peshmahasa anabataton don sos. Adon naide kidige kodo nebetisha di nik. Akod kodo she getting leany kodo but kodo king kilisha na hodot lit. Radit ahit she yet. Adon the quishi yabanach kun ke or gato. Ye ke yakon diginal sos trade the jato. The Naslanda atleto ajigo yana nishigi kodin kilchido den shashi kodon kilchiho di atil chetel nehit diki
Yeah, Lewis, and that's so seen. Yeah. Isiaslande nasha kohogo. Purchini the nainch do tachini the suze. Onagani the sinaldo portly the shape. About Nansako. He for bandit energy had got the dot. No. Joko. Data no had ishman yes got the need after done. Even when he for this so yeah. Nikeya sa angida that Robert Nils Kogo. That's Kogo. Kobo Kachon, edat enedan anago joy. Kidan Hikeyas. Also Sanya Behat Zogi Ado to Kushin Kaya nada has ni Kata Nahaben de Zodo. Ado Lagana Bikaya on the hill ni Kogo ad enet hobo that date. A coco. Bibitson is Klazini Tlon. Ni Toto Behos and his Annie dead nel on. So that it's got the I dot gold they got not you could I had what Behos Hasnell Newton ya Ado had Kaya Shin Quidi. Quite she did it even yet she did in art and behind in the hot eye, but the keep yet sure. The hot eye had to have little naso happy hos in here hot anal sauce becadal in Ado no we had a busy kai in Hado hot eye in the Iber hosn't. That I got us that I thought that ended. No, I had a busy kana in. What I since ni lengi ko lipe has ani edon hedelia da ibelgana da yilla ko yo ko topic it is ni totona rahido ke ya ida den eben hilchins a ko ako tak yedo adon habe hos no ya naso lê hol an hi ke ya hi do trobe haus no e don hayat eta ko ben ye din habe haus do le do alta de bohan sta da no e de kwide sin bet an tra ko di ots des chit as an go e ben hit hat dil ne so ne zati na khayda di belgana e ya so de ade na tani dan lo dan da has ta e aje do Washington ilchenes beni di da bit isi yon ne ze tonlenigi chete dil it na khabe has dan do le fashnel da dan hit do da no ita tsate zo ako ta che khate a che de on ne dan nila khaisha al nido tsato zo die beslissing ze wat datje hol no do fa e wi yatje hol no do le e ni do e yat ko ha wat datje gi se de yo ni do le al ni na na fa e ya wi yatjo do sa do Mexico do ta ba do zo e Washington de no al do de mail ba an as a go e ya ko ke ya as a go e ya ka get to al this is ite town Akovich hotdog ni nana ayaje beslissing as ayaje so set mail dos dat nes dat din de mail sage e ich hotdog ni to sajdo hot e do le beslissing as wat dahi stöp die als additionen ge ja horan benal sosra hat so ge 1 acre le e de ide town alta this is ide town tropical is on with the snake go nana jolta thali to start achun so e benas cha ko to alta this is bakat halong ko illa ko got ko hota ban de ko hota sa de zo nana nana ja die kwet nas cha di de ta ke ya haki to kote to sto ke ya hata so do upper basin if no yeah it's in the ke ya hi ajo in azo New Mexico do Utah Colorado da Wyoming Arizona upper basin ja season hini ke ya haki kui ni ke ya nyon da zo di de ko todo din ha ka to ki do tis not los do le a kwe benel a do le leaf berry ge kwi di ya ko be hos do di bot da so ge do to ko da do din ka won di ben kan le ko jo ya h de yo do ya so gi da no da di la ko di khata de so got ad not only the has tani what that jogi atlas the China and big hako has job that so Arizona giba dots on hin hike ya is that the mail yaz is ango ko to kai de tra we ya so ya sa the has seen on the agenda so the babe hosen ya California illa din is up din din de mail do din is up din not the mail sagi anel epipla nana Arizona ya ajata hanes nanda na kit the mail do se bidnes up din the mail sagi Nevada da chido bato zo ko hoko hota de yilda kon ke halchido Arizona begins sonde ilk de zogopnal sos besa ani Washington bekeya he yati chut keya sna has ani bahat zogi akone keya naz neli Washington bekeya haki ya az tubatot zoya da betsato dole poto ni ne ko ado 전 시도 Washington bekeya hat ani keya haki Ako ni kaya alson deizo. New Mexico do Utah do Arizona. Alsa deizo ko. Ado you had that upper and lower ging he kaya nyon so has nan tlagon ha de yilda ko. Hot de yilda ado behinst in the Arizona and California here in that so to behosen. Dig na ka totan lini. Het is ze bedat niet je dat Deutsche toch inta de net Deutsche toch inta zo de Washington nal sos betrakt ja ga je dan als trago je lago nal sos no betrakt hot Deutsche toch in kon dan niet ade niet zin dat de Washington betrakt hot ja bella le ado an na belatje Kujinat ani bilkhataha soya edo kodes ta ye la skin hot edo le sito hot anan agon khade yilla akot ado ratani edo don hilan sos pato le tande ko ye gol da bishra gotan ahki ediki to ein khaton nicht ko din hikeya ke yo Wort schre kon hikeya to yo tropokatan lida Kujat hegi kohogon le had sin hit quota dot lot Anna so holds so took a hot et on that kind has lean a could I see lana hints and leave it with season as if it's not a kohogine kaja Washington do in hikaya hike it is as trusting do a as banana shade of the hout up it's not liada nasnana Nas ya ni ke haki na kigot dinas la dot ji ya ngi shada asitun lene torchi kol ye hata kina ni hitna de yiz de enle ale hata de yazine idet isyak do ato pesen de lonchen ato de na asan da hatne Cameron, I don't let go if it land halt na asen. Asen let twan leni bi beliketi le aji ki jo aset tuat ene bi dan na haki ade ya da enle kode alle Patchy bikaya te aden dat en nahidat en as bintan na eda de bahint ekol de konne bahint te kochut de chigoi upper basin ol ya edo bahint ida tohita has on de nin de behosen die patient de chiyot in de to nek adeta del carlo at in de tabanet eko is dat in de mail Arizona badet ane edal katba alia ko twini kido ade hike ya because the loss aba hot is a link ko ya hot out to hoki band it adot ye ko hedo ade bahint nasnana dole ko sabe hatos in so ya kuchita Ahwint egon jachot nan sai ya o tradet hot an hi o chen hat trag dat dil to be tradet dit dat no to hot do be hez ko che ahwint da be ke stio ahwint ko do an hi ni be hez an gi be ke hol ya dat dit ahwint ni Le yo tode azich gehad zobe behez ani bekehagol de az italiagi bilgana begol digon banit kohogot do eni hitz is tada kunne kohogo koje dayat ehid Azan khoja ahwin inde. Kaisa obitin dat die zotan hina so dat die don't bet gaat die alto an hui ahi beyond dat die sociela tot de ohtas ajo ata beti nesarul me gaat het hota hot in de khoji in hinan sitil abet khoji ke ya beini te gaat die hasla as personal yin nas nana 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 o zebedi nekis ani to taita bahwinst into ajit ke haki ajit di twalchi bekoi behindan nahi bekeya dat ende beyond sa kaisa sabanda dit inda no aji nal societe di lado anhui ahiandis tin special master will yego kot at bekeya hat so bahwinst de o ze ako large banda dit in ya the negi dol tra ya panel tocho idole na liha pa hoganola ado wunne gon tocho hogan wunne ado Washington beta inishi ajudo wunne tocho ado lahat to benda anishido den nawal tra ito o zeewal tra go eben nasent hunde dort ado alta at zengi to ta jinj to kwis to ebi ya hoto le no yeah a large ki in as nothing na hej as the natal tra the din no ado ishin as the natal tra yeta anni at in it and diznelo yan das ne o zeda no ya nihitun del kha inle استطيع أن أكاديمية أخونيل تولي نزنتينا خاطتيني كتلانده دانو أوي يحتي داتشنت أتسي بيزا دات ميلو بس أصلا نزنتينا كتوش نيل تولي دانو أنت أجب زادا إلنيد أدو أيبك يهتوخان ديت دي ونأكون شطما إيدو ليتشنانيكي خاطميل هنينا خاطميلو بقى santo anast ko as to bekai to se yon hot actual dole adot kote dole to ya belaha dol nilta bekata de dol trasto hot adan hit hot dole adot tlaki ke dot lehi do bena tloden nesta hat jägon sauda innishi eito the nodl il ko tita yugo cheta chi ke de ko ne besmi kosa ke jinda dit lito leta jino eito do hada il sada do khayela da aslinta zo shantin bitsado tsan tshil onle jinda beltledo yelda aslin ko ya na kidmilda ba atradne zatin khayilda tak haki ya la bape hozin ya natin de mil bi now je tunda de nagin le be ya hane ke ya hasan naznelo dinel yo at ene kene zo ko o zeta yikya nasta tin de mil dat ene kene zo hota ni zinda jininde Anna dinas de meilcha de gilda. Dat gaat het chibiga ook hot hanhaus no ahi banil tina hot hanhoina ade ai si ga it ahiba is nele no ahiba is nele biade don nata ade nal societo afo hot as hot o zeje ako ayon kha dichtlat oye otso dat inla dat oba oyat ahon khan da hato ahlai honni tzin ako chha as Japan dit interlesti a dit a haki jut di a khotogon hit khoto leto to e bla ha da to tlita dit na a hat sa khota ni to blia da e to zein lini nana ni heki anil ki e ya bandit he gatit a ya dent koko Nachandal kahonde le tad nezat a tid nezat in anil dole nitzen dati ne ek at ahoint egone di phase 1 ich nen ge na ke hez a ba hoit not in ni hato ne ko phase 1 ge int e di kindan ne lo beyond the any other nalie ba ho ganda dat he gitat ende adot kontro tro dat hin da bendan si trogi edigi the nevel khab natole ekon ez na to satin da jinje e o yi tui kha da e da sat net yo on ko hot out e o ze az chu de yos e ko akon hiti no e yan le asla tse tse beton asla de mil yaji ki ko e az tobi gati ne konde do e hausen da han hot ata di gol de kon e has a kon do be hausen dan hat a ho in der hot be hausi ha sint an han hot do a se e do e hausen da ko ko tlacho tlate aso ya che kon sanjno ya na bikiat cho khape hozi tatsanto ki ya azn hat aho ko de kwide sin kon sayat potan hoto ali da do din ni da o na ako na hoi ahi na aho in de da ko in da hot beta hozi tlata hat na hat tlata chizna hat na Gut, die gat nishin ha hint any as ke yase le bolchi kope ke yase de nayel traditionne die elna die strat da hoyo khato ade ta dit ai han dit je ade ya den hena kitje a kitje ade ta dit ato le ju wat de shin dan hoto ato al social sabel handen nota Nana phase 2 iltnaniki aje ya nanishn tsagi hada akietigi ado atsan klishta dal ado alle danan de kieto alle atsita dat dal ado ketelie dan rede ketolia hada at in natal ka eben nat toholdang in rede hast tu kedatilla ha zani kedatilla ha Ado an hijin he ol inchin hit to aid yo consas zen ba hot aid sin at in ba da hot in an rede hol ze hit at hotchin in de ado na harago da sin hotchitil ado na neta da et da hata il de hata ila et koppa da halno ko e do at e wel kha e na hast ja doch hat ein dabei hin le tra nachrede de in dat gahatol dus ado koko hot aangilt als hat een reden in dat gebeurt als niet nana sa nana die dit dat ja Akate ahaki bahan to lesiko go suzeti bahat ne haisa.
Genetisch alga. Die kweki ki khayla betet shin winsen. Ado hot ego shen yaban sokkesen leko. Nes ant ego kodoki nabe khodo ku yakinido o zebedi neniki ado undetta bayotzen. Tralt ego betsin shtleji. Akon de line lozado kojo hoz doje hahot zoki. Adon de hoz doje hahot zokin le troiketes in gilto. Adon de hoz doje hahot zo keya hiketes in gi. Adon de yakon de kitlaneta. Adon de layeda ahochin le kodidi ki tselchi aje troha ninigisho hut ego بجي لا أكونايز نالت إيجو أكوت إيجو بداتيت دي كودوكي نالت سوسكي خددناهو كو نيز بتخا إيجي جو نابيخو كو نيلت سوس آدون دتا ناز تيلت إيجو نالت سوسكي تنوث إنت آدون دتا كون هانت سوشي نيك تولت كهنله آشوكت آدون دتا دي كو آخوت إدشننكي John Lay na be khoeya nastet ding doba hastrana khego sebeting doba hastrana khego de nekhoned lago jo khut ego khut ego chet asad lindle adon da khonelt trogi des siki nkhet khaz anke khonelt trogi khonelt chiyot indo litha nenigi digi kwegi he soki yagi des in lidolit. Adon de hale haila troshin belga dat le koti de trobishran nesen lenegi digi nana digi ya kwike bahuint idolit. Adon de le tahid lenegi jo ade atron lenegi do hitati lenegi nana adon de Kaz nenekilto akonde ato tione esit zinda. Od yehegi akwige hand so she hitet iki benachiko nihil old khagi benachiko diki kweki trohogilto ajiko nil idorlis ado ondeta tikwige tron lenegilto nana bishran nesbeti nenekido thaltlaten letlegi the trohodloneki digi dorlis adon da kweki ki yakayansra le kellanete naho kosho digi keya nahazni hanene to kwigi trogi ade goki dan leniki adoki bejata dod ni goki kwigi banate endle adonana dorlis akkots dan schago yan le kojo naho kosho jo kundi gibaj ohot asedlinle yasos keya has ago kwige ade tronleniki etla nhabecha adodni le khalikeda hat intle ade nahokos adoshi bi trodo de bensa ajigo ki adon de kweke hos dochekeya ntelo se jodo kocho yo troje jo ajigo ge naho koshiko ki hut ego be watchen leko digi ade tron leniki kundi gi bakha ako this ding doba di the meal so doba se sossedinezattin hunelt trohogi hut abakha ako digilto honanat adon detan le oyachon leti neniki yatha has ago ajiko gilto keya da ojigi jokojigi alkeda da jekha ni lende keya hotso ki kojo le ajiko ki adon de hos tojanana alto ako don le shi to kwigi ki betatet lenigi ade go ki tron leko le na ho koshe ado on de tashata Ei article ki ya hut ego ki ya budget da hod lonigi kodon ki da huit asal lin leko. Ei ade o trodan lenigi diki ya kweke becha do nito kweke na be khoba de dot as nana ako hoti diki ya han so shi ya yisi ki ton lenigi di kweke ki ya joba huint en lenigi do kweke ba huit asal lin lenigi tset chi beti lenigi diki yetzel chi be ko ton lenigi quiki ki ya cho kudon ke cho hona yetes din do ba di ko de khatnas nel da bana gano diki ya huta ta kon le di ko diki ba na hoto tin lenigi cho ni ya yego ya ni hitet ado ndata o zeto ado payot zento honana sto betlini of kashi nigo sto kuige ya a kwake dadel kashigi ba at a konde Asian ordinal zen a hot end apishik in the dad or lis beso yoke digido beso be to nitin lenigi digi ya at ado nana dorles di kuige tro nleile yet the hodlo na be hol yehegi ajo be biti tlediki lle yet hoki diki to han so she ya kon diki yanki ya hodlo ako ya kon diki ya han so she ya di de chede don inligit ya tabaka nleko ado ndeta ya kon de o zechi yot indo le ton hina be honi tlenigi to chiyot indo ben ha hot in lidorlich adon detta kwaki ya han so she ya bajalia diki ya honelt ya troki adegi hatilos o zeido to hut ego nabaka to trohanane dot losagi to nelt gebe hozaniye ako diki tro han so she sakrado se yindo da haidiyeniki jo diki ya kon dik bitnel hon chuna be khoni kliniki ya de kui des ni do de kui des is da ni go ya a khut ego yankit be hozen ado und da kuchiko ki be ini keden lenigi trogi ya ni khaz age jo kui ya se na kidneza tin do ba ase pi de kango sa na kidneza tin do ba ase pi this is Sachiko kilto afananate na kidneza tindo ba ase pi this is a when sokoto adon that the asa this is a hut ego ya trogi da hide yingo hut ego ya bebe tra ini chin nana adon that the diki ya ko de ba hanne leniki ya kochiko ki na ho koshikon leke sanachiko jo kokanino de nesto article ki to thoda hide yen ki yisin tkelo ya ta hide yen lenko diki ya yisi ya konde han so she ya thoda hide yen ki ya ke ya ta o chiki ke ya tin ki da hatitso kweke ya konde gin ke ya de ya hodlo do shi ya fets da na hadlo thoda sa khada de han so she ya thobin das na jon le sa ho a leta jenel ego de ki ya han so she ya de konde lets da konde be thoda sa krango o da heide ye do ya hut da ko trobetra das nenigi letsa be ko ya dan le ye da dan lenigi do ya hut ego sa kranigi hut ego ba ye Akorde ya hut end han so she ya konde ki ya aba hot lido les ba hot kwake ya naide kide be da det in lido les ako diki kwake bich ya tke in linigi o ze ajigo ki ya bes ol khadole ado kuje he shinche ke ya hikides inki nana dole to ke sanaje az aniki adon de kwake be kashine khadigi to kwake Bekashines Kadigi to Han so she yabiba alia diki yapeta det etolis a kohoti diki cocanino bedi ninigi say the tossa kweke hodloniki ya aat ende na be hobi ya has anige kweke ya da hide yet lachte a kotle yet hod diki ya ahut ako na na dodle diki kweke ki na de kit joins go ya aat ki na de dish kit no seniki quigi ya ahut dodle adon detta ade sa labetochki do kwadoki Beshbehan enkiche nanin stratenle. Nast na kisse se bi diki ya naz pastoba ashlato adon de da strado soset. Nast na kisse bi se bi nazbas ashla astrasos adege yasadnat agibe de dochkit. Adon de takun ki natna al kidigito ajiko to pahas andle kwege naite desh kitla neniki kwege sadlando as adon de ta id need kudi need traten lindorle ako tla naito kitten leko she kodogi hans so she yangiche ena hadot sinkin leko diki ya oshibeni yelche et nofzen ecuadon gilche desh at tla naito kiligi ya de peso ki arabacha al yago eshikit edorli eshikweke ya halate ya ban sohotes kes peso arabacha al yago ado ende da ya kundi ki ledan ande pata ol ze in do ze ne kagido he ishin da zonadnish da yo lechigi to kundi gibel kerhonit to einke trohgiche yo o ani hot edoch anda de khagi da to kundi ginke trakhe jo ajit ina kwege janan to dina ko kundla da shiya kunki trako hot londo les la kana adon da ant ego de neshin lini tlasto naito kid de da inisho se bigo los casco wash ajigo kilto yati de beshba hasa anen lini nal so sigibiche hodne la ado yisi yego banaite kidat ati yakundi ki nebik yat le konde kodo aba johot an leniki Chukadashlatina Hego, Biche Ho Jistiba Nahat Ingo. Di Kodoba Nate Inigidonald Sosigi Net Nil Sozo. Con de He Hodo Nido. Yana Tra Nana Hego under Dankiche Ehodozin, Escado Nana Hedona Desert. Adinkiche Ehodozin do hut ego has and ako. Yisi Ben Nachigoki Kundigi. Na idof kedigi nehi do letin leko. Diki ya ekwadoki on kilchitesh atlendle. Adon de dikuige in kilchit anigito. Jun le na be hobe keya lenigi. Adon de abatrai sto kondiki ya. Sahot ego ya keya netlabada hidesta. At saik is a tahagi hat no. Diki sto. Diki sto heit la ebas oltrador le jochut ego yahuinsen do diki sto ba konitsen kon le yo trojiko alla da hut ego keya hagida yo leten giten en lini ajiko ki hosen le ado koje he shiche do hoz to keya ha hot son lenigi ni hier ston kit hodlo sto de sub at sabik in it anigi kayata hos sos gibenalsos digi to afonanat adon de kwadoki ya jokoje na hoji se lein lebaj na hodot atin lenigi khajikola ayat akho na kelin at ego sin kwitli de nebetil loshna hadlo at ego ya Aslahaget ego biketa haznel akon de hingit at adon de takuba galdo higit shin at skete go think bitli galdo la slakishi kedo dole jo diki kuige ba huint hingi hut ego betla khana nel akodi kojiki yisi gwel tego na hit o diki o ba ijaha ha kago dat de yakun ope in nanako ois neko ahut ego shi yana khana hadot Adon the Donaldso, Sikite Yapol Tradorle, Aquende ya peso, dopen that donation Lenigi, the Kuni Batch Ohana, the peso Washington Adoch Ina Anigi hat Nenigi, diki ya ti o bol tra da Quige Elkan seat ido. Ado and that yet the nechiten that lesto, Aja da hold that o quidget da hold that o Quige Yapatrai has adorlit. Adon that the Anzagona had all just so beso bit the has onigi. Agat ahin lenigi kwechi don ito ya the has senigi to quigi don itin lenigi. Yisi ajikoki nantla. Kujikoki is got that. Aniki up there behozani ye dodlet. Nike hut ego yini kid. Dike ya quacket nebeti shanty nit. Adon that the sebet dindo as hanana hego. Wenelt ya nabe hodlon dolet. Dida. This dindo din keya. Ajikoki hahotso ki shata ajikoki. Ajikoki epiteti ki behozanadorlet. Chohut ego nebelishan ilia. Adon that the yard board count to quake. Quadotina going to eat a strandle. Anelt beso behest odorlet. To harden la tweet los to relabado los adenki. Adoben that donation lenigi to. Adon that the trogi tradas lidorlet. Jo digi to quake be las lingo ge Ajikon hot anko eitadel kasigi itodlit o quake nebikiat kikin linigi yisi dodlit. Ako de yahut dodlit. Ako de yati de con be quake ya nkisha shle dodlit. Adon that the only husband dodlit. Se be the dog at the need cutting the ginger. El kid. Akon de dikwadoking kitchen nane destran lenige ay khad la ay khayla ay yabche trote sklos or le nenigi dikwa kiking national kidiki diki ya jot at egon dash sa yachi adon de lede a childot jigibiti nenigi ilto diki Achut ego nash ki adon that khatatin halonlet soki adon that sapaton le adot jigi kasta hinodlen akon le chiki ya akwige hawando trobet ya ilenda ki ya na kidneys natin achut ego ya nal sosigi bakha adot iltet skoko achut ego nash ki nes natin dob shlatin Dona kidneys at Dina quake but cut na wing nago quig hut ego one has ya tro a quake yitin le adon that tradatin had long fet so ya nezatin doba nezatin doba shlatin quig ya a honelt ya hawaniki has troiten le Akodi hilt ego oyo sapan leniki ya islatin don le nezatin akwa eke bohui nako akwa eke ya hut ego ya kut ya nel in lenko ado nana dodle di kwa eke ki ya di de dal chi o ku digi nashaki digi kodoki tsiso bahotesh ne hako di de kojen le beste chi do Toto twins chonadon le condot leja aji kides inki nahi de zido bachin da yil yehegi kuja atahot so jubal khaz diki dit ego ya han so shi ajigo ya to the nitra days laws a konden le diki le chiki kwajon le ajigoki ajigoki ya sa akweki el nehen lido le Ado and the Dunley Naho question. Ado and the Dunley Chinlingen has Ado da Dak had Lanigan Nan alto. Ado and the Dunley Quajon laid Tohaj, it don't lay Arjigo to Kaya Hagil Tobal Trattenle. Late long Yajet don't lay a Yanabet Hojet to Hodlon Dolly. Ado and the Kon de look at the shinjil to nana dorle. Quiggy ya behozena go hodlon dorle. Nana. Kade yakun diki bejetin leniki kodoki yan gilchitish atle. Diki yakun de bajohotish atle leniki kodo. Yesi telchi ajigogi ya bakotish leniki telchi ajobakogi quaki. De yatsi zizido chajentra. Ado und da yatsidi trot. Ado tro. Quaget isso. Ado und dann le torch do. Ado und dann le the wishy be torch. Jo quick yahut ego set na an leko. Diki ya quick ahut ego yachetot losen le. Ado und da diki jet loso ki ya peso bada hadloniki quedotlan gichi itesh trahin leko. Diki yakwadon gichi itesh trahin lenigi. Hanelt ya peso doni. Ako kojiki sabe biti tlid. Na be hodo ayakini pesh. Topana ado leto di tlosto letiki. Yakwado kin le tronda nana ansad. Toda hidi yenigi le chi ibi ratiki ya pesh le chi ha get. Kai bi todo le chi. Ado und dat na pas habetindo toda nestize. Aji ke ya toit losaki ajigo ke inkilna has aniki ajigo ke ya hut ego trogi ade it lostole. Akonda bahadole ki asa to dat legendo sos de mil so diki honelt bahadole. Ado und da kun diki na beho. Aji quankil has aniki quakinkil ultraki diki ya quajem quaki na dorle. Look at this ginger, a what ego be bit eatlet. Diki yakinlet sheet or look at this ginger, say yet hodo. I don't kin kill do jada but hodo ho yet. Ajigo gil to lapana ado list or quigil to a totojado loss. Yana kidness and no ash latin the meal so hunelt yapahadorle. Adon the takun diki yana kidos trado din hut ego a teen bit that lidigi jo ein lay natin Georgia den aden with all wasiki yata hey don lay say beneath torture. Diki ya kun diki kwadoki yan hispehos and lindorle. Ajigo toit losiki yatsa hotso. Ado and the jehot sodone ichi hasana. Ajigo ya tradnes at ding dob nast at ding the meal so. Honelt yabahadolis. Ado kaya dingo. Da hadit so. Kicho in lido dak hadlana nazlana. Ado chech is Ado und dann le trotla kandot isnas baso trotzes age. Quige ya beso to aji ki bao keden lenigi adeche dot losigi ya so sednesa dido ase bitin the meal so nana ako kadel trongi instra ado kuye na hat sie akon leit zile jinji has aniki ya zile jin do le to ad isi to adon det da kun det settel don i chetes abek ba hot sanet ado besot legende skijos hosto de troje Ajigo itlosiki ya asad nezatido anast etido atra de milso diki ya hot adon det dan letsasa aja neniki ajo to to sababa le becha ya do be betit yakun det sessa adon hat atzi lok bitro ajigo gilto ya ajigo gilto ya nezatido anast etido ashla de milso hunelt dole na kiko ke dole linige ye do tro dot los kun digi na kes ant ego be betra ije na be hobe betit le dot lage ya kokonino bedi niniki toit losigates api kendon le na hat es an klejin hakiet shat trona halli adon det da sahobena da det in liniki isto trada kwege trana zel da bana ranoko hot ego ja betratot losen leko. Die ki ja tradnesa ting de milzo, honelt bahatorlich. Kweki ja belche, huslehegi ja die jan le, die na hat es kai adon dat tonanes dizetje. Todnesh jeje aje has anige chimbi todo the nets dena hotso jiki to ja babaja alja allad nezat do anas do ba stlat de milzo ende hinetso go ki ja na ki ado dat legendo ba din de milzo so higi honelt ot ja a goed ja goed beta anisto a goed ego yini kedo tohat lozo ela ja togi be lido le chotsen le shikuigi ja a kwaki ja goed to kwe shantin betlod lenigi chidon in lenigi digi so yaligi bod trao de lias le ja desdin de milso honelt ja beja ba alia kwaki peso ke do deini ke lenigi trobe da annisto baby ke test do also de ja bedan dat dan lenigi to peso ke pa le adon de dan le da ke bena an lies article ke na close to bol do le adon de hand so shin to de troika to asati to troba beja do ni a goed ego ja do king ke neses traten lindo le ako ja die hand so shin ja si kon diki ja bot do le niet go ja kodoki ja hand so shin ja kon diki si in lenigi ja banaten ato le kon diki ja naide kit ado beso chitet anago shehit edole ado on da ja na so sigisa beta na hadit ahi beshba has anabetato nil so sida de kuila haide tra la jo kuigo na naidel kit ade shi ye di kuige kudon kiche wol traten lenigi yan leng traho ja de heni kreslin leko adon de hans so she ja kunde shashi do ashe shanas ba huidno ito shanas la todle shin kuige to ja na ide kidigi san ke hodlo ko ako skago lenes na de do tra je ja ja kundi ki lebina hat es kaida yanke da na khado shiti
die kodo Renziot is so sabak bandish also die den lengi ja igisi tochyo ini kratat jo na hot lehid but jo tkoje bilgatet die kotrate tochen le die den da si la tropatot so ja hast da za ja da kontropait so ko den le naso da ajo she betot da hadlo do le na khego ku de sin sana o gra jo hat tropatet ana ko jo shin pi twoje da na na se betin de mil bana dort so ajo ne de mil si tro tro nan le ni btsado ako di kote je shin khilkhot so ja die si bet hoye le tro tan le ni bahagi ako di upper basin yish ni se bi slatin de mil ko ako ja is so Arizona bin chito inho ako deep in so ja das tin do ba tin de mil do ba se bi ne za to se ne za tin milliards in hitchinil in the neko that any hot up is so. I could this needs us this need of answers the melee you see it's the it or zebra the hat it's the alcohol. Be ya then could it but this the we yacho. Dat ding dat straten is dat ding als je nog $1 niet kunt na die trabi gehad je niet $1 no ko dat en je niet zo ko die dus ding dat als bi dat straten is tussen is dat ding de milia ze ko ja trote en denke ko elan na hun zijn kon het ne betracht dat los ko dat ze net kota ja. That's all that was available from the Colorado River system. Tlachenge belakana daita pepe hezani ki hauskol tradesta. Akota ni tlachindi da hautan hit chehe daita hota hot int. Ako nasa chini inda ben ye hota you see unique ato kwet na itik nenki I want to answer that question. What happens if there's if we don't get the money? And that's the job of the negotiating team and our leaders to go to Washington for the money. Every water settlement is like that. There's no guarantee that they'll get the money, and somehow or other they have to find the money to do it, and the laws won't allow us to get that money ahead of time. That's just the way it is. So it will require a lot of work and imagination to get that water. Peso bahalo hota ya chito in ko ko peso ki ta don de sa no na ite kijoko join na situation na na so na site to lihin ye konta ka hota behes to Washington to kote pat ilnesi ko hondon na ata but no ito yes ada peso ni di ahito ye le dan hien hitit ko Isten also hano nicht ada ban sit keson di at nicht ako senst lezit at hot dat is at tropa talia ko go na sit na so na sit at $1 na kone continue.
Ako di ko ki ya ati ya kun di ki ya ngitho de ki ya ngitho ngitati tletle ako ko ki skago ol j troje bi na hat sky ko ki jat net and ko ki natli ko ki nes na de don le tradition dodle don de ya kun di ki ya الكي خنا آكو استو إيا بيدهنا صوصن لكو دي دن نابخو بواشنطن آجي لاجة دا ستاهاجي President Nye Green تو آتين كي ناغهتين آده بتخات نازنله وغانكي تو آتي كي إيشين تو إي آده إسحني لين دولك إي سي بيكو يو كاسو دا إي نيشو Adon that the more be yajanast egon eyos Catherine is not only trad et sees it's a nati it nas in the liberange. Adon that be keon eki e yakwajona ho koshonana dodlis. Diki e yakon des to the mogo e yasani clean dodlis in leko. Adon the satsat the hone eyos Catho e konde na hasana niniki. Le acho go ki to ade sani clean nast don le aslahajin bejik kilchon digi na kidon le strategy ya tonanes deze go ki yatnas na libaganke kweke ya aslahni clean adon that na kitsat da hone yos kato itsasa anachidodles digi ya aslahni clean $3 na libagan Adon detta kondiki ilkeennelo kodon gilchohona adorlis. Look at this gen hat nenigi to quigi look equi asto sahit lehin lidolis. Trats at the hane castle. Quigi asahni lidolis. To kondiki kodogi bahasige kondiki national kitten leko. In that the lay hand so she getting the wheat netto, don't get cheddar. Don't that the Haila sto a quick united kid or this. Don't that the Ila bad a wind a hatne. A cohoti diki hand so she chopa banate ingo quadon get chair wheat and lek and get cheddar wheat quack yanda ako diki si kon diki jo o zaid yanal sosnin so aita bit hosen hatne adon that diki aben nache nil ingo sto ni hier sto heit ego da an hieke hatits ado itsa ona hosit na hisi trago eton khaya ashpon da dole ako diko ekiki na be khoni kliniki nast etindo ba strana khego ja tradne zetindo ma disting de mil diki honilt etodles honilt de ja jo hut ego ja ban saha kesto hina has son leko diko eken kinkil khaz aniken le shna shado tradnes ni shto yetlini bashin trotz sonne ische chedat trotchini shna letat Nikin kilchas ado atlan gemadon hejeko. Dins tahnilt Ahunelt aslahato hawan has ado aslahato heje. Aquakin ki yaho a cook at this gene de ya nachas chinadon get so ken lini. Adequi yabadal tran. Jo hut ego yabas nahas anle. Jo eben nachago kibet a khana nelogi diki kweke de nenal tra nenigi jan kwege de kosen sagi ke tranni o diki ti na khayata ado hojo de nawol trada a kweke na hot kiben nachago a konde diki nikilpe hozendo leten leko a kohot sebet din do strana khidon nezat din na khigo when zago atol glad kundiki nalsos papint iniki diki party nen leko diki kun John kin hagat at the snow bach hona anle chash jeni hotes ado in the tanle ahawade kundiki away hanol cha no bahan ado fish ikhatatras giz den the lake canal that hat al inge sto kweke that netra that the kisen lenigi sto ndel len hot ego yange na haga don that the etni shodi sto toyo cheyo ingo te o planen lini yen bezad nal sos da yo asigi sto sto trogi cheyo jo trobe dis zin da hat nigo hot ego ba hanne Ako dikit hut ego ban si kesen lido hut ego yankis chohuit adolis. Adon that kon diki so the zen boltra ni holtra dolis. Kuigen keman lebe ke ba hot sande tranaznele aje large satahagi to large ho atin lemigin kema Bessie Allen joy dada nakis kanda in hijahatzi Denk so the zeniki the dogi. Hale yan lequel de debe na de. Adot so hotes and go shin keya hochigo shin kit yan de no. Then his zazen get shot and lini hot egos so the zeniki ye hatas se shashito ebe hanada tits. Adon that the con den his a last so to kun his adigichios in. Ako to to honana yin selin leko diki to ben kia hotel zendi besench tjida nit leniki han shanana Kon digit so de zengi bakha in nadot at ado nada idni lenigidon is nada net lenigito which nada wel jishin leko. Kon digin get so de zengi ben nachiko ki ya hut dole. Adon that hut ego eko kon digin get chitish at leko. Digi nlela ho nikit na has anko ya nikit pehosen. Nikit chach ejiche kojona njo jibi ye chiko. Nelle in del ego. Dole do shi the ne betske the do betzi dansen. Del ego nasses lein de konde ne betze ligi. Betche de go troye ne yich afen neko. Troge ye ne ye leti ne betzele. Nijane konde ki ya alle ne hier. Hans so shi ya konde aji ko beda annishiki do bedlinki yahut ego chiyos kodosha an lini the white adosha na ashin lini Jason kodo kinkichi yanana titoles adosha the white.
Yeah, a couple of questions that were asked that I would like to respond to. One of those questions certainly were about why is the Navajo Nation trying to, in the question, it says, rush this item before the nation. The Navajo Nation legal and technical team identified that we needed to get a congressional legislation dropped. And we initially had a goal of trying to get legislation dropped by February 1st. And then we also reached out to the congressional representatives and the senators, certainly within our state, and asked if they had a particular timeline that we needed to try to get federal legislation initiated to be able to get this Congress to consider certainly a Navajo Nation water rights. We did get a response back that we should seek to try to get legislation dropped around the beginning of March. And so we are a little bit behind that schedule, and that's why we are reaching out ahead of time and trying to provide as much education as possible for all of the Navajo Nation to be able to address kind of this concern about the legislation and it being dropped and considered certainly on by the Navajo Nation Council here in the regular schedule of 5-day comment period, and then it going before the committees. The other question was about my mention about past, present, and future. And the question was, can this apply if the Navajo Nation wants to file for restitution for all Navajo water rights that flow from the Colorado River and the Little Colorado River that we lost to the outside world for their benefit? In a settlement agreement, there is a section that's identified in a paragraph as settling all the claims to your water rights and waiving essentially, you're not trying to go back and try to obtain more water rights in the future. And so part of the waiver section is you're resolving your water rights in this agreement. We would be resolving our water rights to the upper basin, to the lower basin, to the Little Colorado River, certainly for groundwater, for the N aquifer and the C aquifer, as well as the Big Bow Kias Ranch in the Gila. And so by settling, we are resolving our water rights in this comprehensive way. And so we would be saying that we're not going to try to come back and then request, things that had happened or occurred in the past. We would be trying to settle this, and that's part of the waiver section. So that's how I wanted to respond to that question. Thank you.
Good evening. This is Jason John with the Department of Water Resources. There was a question about if we were taking into account professionals. I think the question was in reference to non-Navajo workers that come onto the Navajo Nation, and if we're taking them into account in the water projects that are being sized for the future. And the answer is yes. When we look at the census data to develop these projects, we look at the census data and we take into account all of the population within the chapters. And then that is applied a growth rate and a per capita amount of water use per person per day. So there's a growth rate, and then there's an increased water use per person per day that takes into account water for in-home use, water for businesses, water for schools, and other economic development. So for example, Indian Health Service only sizes pipelines to go to homes where the per person in the home, each person in the home would utilize about 50 gallons per day. In this proposed settlement, we're looking at not only a growth rate for all the chapters in the area, but also they would use about 130 gallons per person per day. That includes water for economic development. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. And this is Ethel Branch, Attorney General. And I see another question about the costs. The question is, if the federal government will not pay for the total project costs, what happens to the settlement agreement? And so that's something that we are working through right now. We're thinking through, we're strategizing. So just to place us back in context, and this goes to the timing question as well. The Little Colorado River adjudication is underway, and that claim was filed in 1978. And we're just now at the point where the Hopi presented their case, and there was a recommended decree by the special master to the court that has not been adopted by the court yet. The nation has presented its first phase of its claim, which is mostly relating to domestic, commercial, municipal, and light industrial use. And we are filing our closing brief on that actually next Friday. And we'll have closing arguments next month. So that's just a sense for how slow adjudication works, but it's also a sense to just a reminder that even if we were to not settle, the adjudication is moving forward. And what happened in the Hopi trial is that the special master recommended that Hopi receive a third of what they claimed. And the way that an adjudication works is you're starting out with zero, a presumption of zero water rights, and you have to make your case. You have to make your case based on historic use, existing use, and future use. And there are a lot of questions by Esor Reddens and suggestions on things to take into account. And those things were taken into account in building the nation's claim. Different data sources to establish population and amounts of use, both historic and existing, and also projections into the future. And so, based on available data and information, we presented that claim. And what we saw happen with Hopi was that the special master recommended that they receive a third of what they claim. So that's kind of, and we hope that our claims, our case was presented stronger, but that is an indicator of what could come out of the adjudication. And so, before there is a recommended decree and entry of that decree by the judge, we want to have the opportunity to settle our rights, because in a settlement, everything is on the table. There's a presumption that everything is established, and there are some things, for example, the in aquifer, where it's obvious that Navajo and Hopi are the only users. One second. And so the presumption is that can be divided between the two tribes. It's obvious. But that's the difference between a settlement context versus a litigation context, where the assumption is that you have no right, neither tribe has a right, and they have to affirmatively establish that they have a right to the in aquifer, for example. And then the judge decides, based on the data that you've presented, whether and to what extent you have that right, and everything that's left over is available to someone else to claim, to establish a right to. So, before there is these types of actions by the court, this is our opportunity. This is our last opportunity to settle our water rights when it comes to the LCR, where our rights are being adjudicated. And so that's part of the timing calculation. And then, as Dwight mentioned, we are at the end of a current Congress. There's an election coming up that could change the composition of Congress, as well as the White House and the leadership at the Department of Interior. And right now, we have a president and a secretary that are very supportive of settling Indian water rights. So this is an opportunity that we want to be able to capitalize on. And the president challenged this administration early on to settle our water rights and to ensure that we had maximum access to water for the future. And so that's what we set about doing. And we are in this incredible position where we're not just talking about securing rights to the LCR, but also upper basin as well as lower basin. And in adjudication context, there is no current adjudication to the upper basin right now. So we would have to wait, and just giving you that sense for the LCR adjudication, that was filed in 1978, and we're just now at that point where we might know what our perfected claims are coming out of that adjudication sometime in the next 10 years. So we don't want to wait that long to have access to upper basin water, and that's the firmest water in the system. And that's a substantial component to the proposed settlement that we're looking at right now, is actually being able to bring that very firm Colorado River water into our communities. And this is just in terms of the timeline. These are just the circumstances that we're in. And if we want to capitalize on this moment and lock in this opportunity to have maximum access to water, given the circumstances that exist today, whether they're political or physical in terms of the amount of water in the river under the current mega drought conditions that we live in, this is our opportunity to secure that maximum water access for our people, and to get this through this Congress. As Dwight said, we really have to get this legislation before Congress immediately. And so that's the timeline that we've been dealt, and that's what the conditions that we're working under. And so we're just trying to capitalize on that best we can. And in terms of the funding, if we are trying to maximize the amount of funding that we can get. And so we're strategizing, what do we think is the most that Congress would fund? And in the settlement context, this is a conversation we can have. In the litigation context, there will be no funding. There will be no funding to build any of the projects to capitalize on whatever water rights we get coming out of an adjudication. So this is a very unique situation. And so, it's a complex question. It's a complex problem to think through. But that the waivers don't go into place until the funding that we settle for is secured. And so we want to make sure that that's an amount that will actually be funded by Congress, but that will also advance as much as possible the building out of the infrastructure that the nation needs to be able to deliver the water that we settle rights to people's homes. So thanks for that really great question. It's very complex. Thank you.
One of the main factors that I'd like to share with you, we are the corn pollen of yesterday's prayers.